welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to talk about, you saw the title, we're going to talk about TRISHA PAYTAS and this Aquaman nonsense. Just before we get into it, I'm so sorry but the video is a little bit late. My laptop suddenly crashed and burned, and then I had friends visiting coming into London, so I've been in and out of London all week last week. It's been a lot, but as soon as I was visiting my friends, all this TRISHA PAYTAS stuff came up and I was like, I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it. So here's finally the video. I know it's a little bit late, but we're still going to talk about it. So you probably heard in the news, TRISHA PAYTAS gave birth to her third child and named him Aquaman.
Girl. This girl is delusional.
Now, I'm going to talk about it later in the video. I'm very skeptical that two adults came together and heard the name Aquaman and said, yes, that's what we're going to legally name our child. I highly doubt that they actually did that. My theory, my thing, this is what I'm thinking, is that these are their children's public facing names, their personas, their pseudonyms. Pseudonyms? I don't know. And that these, on paper, their names are something different. This is what I'm hoping. Aquaman sounds ridiculous. Could you imagine a child, not a child, but an adult coming in for an interview and are like, hey, what's your name? Are you, how do you feel about this job? And they're like, yes, my name is Aquaman Paytas. No, that just sounds ridiculous. I don't really think that on paper, this is the child's legal name. At least I hope not, but we'll talk more to how I feel about that later. So for those who don't know who TRISHA PAYTAS is, I will talk about a brief history of her very, very briefly. I feel like an in-depth breakdown or deep dive into TRISHA PAYTAS can run the length of a feature film, 4 or 5 hours maybe, multi-part movie series or something. You can't deep dive into Trisha without it taking quite some time. So we're not going to do it. We're not going to do that. I'll just talk briefly about a little bit about her and her history, her background. From the beginning of Trisha Paytas's career, I guess you want to say, or social media career, she's always come across as someone that wanted to be famous. Just the way that she dressed, even from back in the day, the way that she carried herself, the way that she acted, the way that she performed, it just always seemed like someone that wanted attention and wanted to be famous. Specifically, I believe that she started kind of her personality, her public personality or public persona back in the days of MySpace, I believe, just doing from some research. That's how she started. I'm old enough to know what MySpace is, but I've never used it. But I think that's also how Jeffree Star started out as well, was on MySpace. So she became more of a public figure when she auditioned for America's Got Talent. I think her talent was being able to talk really fast.
I talk really fast, and I'm a rapper.
Yes, a rapper.
A rapper.
All right, I have high hopes for you. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm ready. Every single summer when I turn on my TV, I'm watching HT thinking how should be me on the stage on a K-show. It's so awful cold. Didn't take it seriously because I never had talent. I'm not like Jimmy Fallon. You people think I'm fat bitch just like any other blonde, except for Grandma Mom, who's up to talk about that. Can't even let us talk about fat. I'm starting with this. Tell me how.
Not long after that, she began appearing in movies and TV shows and music videos, most notably Eminem's video, and I think she was also in an Amy Winehouse video as well. And as for TV shows, she featured in Modern Family and shows like My Strange Addiction as well.
Nice job.
Butt lift. Last summer that thing was 4 inches off the ground.
What do they do with all the butt they take out?
I have a theory.
But her fame really began to kick off after she launched her YouTube video. She did skits and vlogs and just rants about how she felt that day, I guess. And that rapidly got her the fame and the notoriety that we know her for today. Around that time, maybe a few years later, is when I first started to hear about TRISHA PAYTAS, when she began to become really close friends with YouTubers like Jeffree Star and Colleen Ballinger and Shane Dawson. Those kind of people is when I first started to hear more about who she was and the craziness that she was getting up to. And her fame grew even more when she started a podcast series with her then friend now brother-in-law, right? Yeah, now brother-in-law with Ethan Klein on the H3H3 podcast. I think no, specifically it was called Frenemies, and that's when, in my opinion, her popularity just really, really grew. Not just this annoying internet chick, but actually like a person who had a personality and thoughts and feelings and was just really funny and relatable to a larger audience. Since then, she's no longer friends with Ethan Klein. I don't even think they are even on speaking terms. Ethan Klein and his wife actually introduced Trisha Paytas to her now husband, who was the brother of Ethan's wife, right? And in 2023, she gained a lot of public sympathy after the cancellation of Colleen Ballinger. I think it was mentioned that, Colleen was friends with Trisha, but was like secretly sharing like spicy pictures of Trisha to like young children and, close friends behind Trisha's back. So once that was exposed, Trisha gained a lot of public sympathy, and a lot more people went to her social media channels as she spoke about it all. And so that's where she gained even more popularity. Now, Trisha has her own really successful podcast called Just Trish. I tried to listen to it back when it first came out, but in my opinion, she doesn't have a very soothing voice. Her voice isn't really nice to listen to for long periods of time, so I couldn't tolerate it. Her voice was just like nails on a chalkboard.
That's my opinion!
But the podcast is really doing really well, and I think that's where she announced her announcement about naming her child Aquaman. I'm not a fan of Trisha. Even during, the whole Shane Dawson era, I was more interested in her because of her friendship to Shane Dawson. But I mean, clearly, right? I'm not a big fan of hers. I don't really get her as to what the appeal is or why people find her so compelling. I know she's always been quite famous or popular for being quite problematic in certain ways, like her rants and her crash outs, and just the things that she says and does, and her videos for trolling and things like that. I know that's what gained her a lot of you know popularity, but I think you can be problematic, but I think it goes too far when it goes on to hurt people and you say really bad things about different kinds of. I'm trying to say that she's done some really bad things. I came across a list on Reddit, actually kind of listing out some of the like past controversies that Trisha's gotten up to over the years. Like, she's identified as a black woman and she pretended to be Jewish. She pretended to be Hare Krishna. She said that she had mental health disorders when she really didn't, and claimed to have these personality disorders and things like that. In actuality, she never did. She came out as transgender. She made a song comparing black men to monkeys. So that's something I can never forget. Those are things I can't forgive Trisha for ever. So I know that in the past it's been alleged that she's actually gotten her snark Reddit pages taken down. So that's probably why so many people support her now and don't know, or easily forget what she's done in the past, because there's not a lot of content out there saying what she has done, because she's gotten it taken down. But I know what she's done, I know what she's said, and those aren't things I can easily I can know I can't forgive anyone for. I do believe that people have the capacity to change. I do believe people have, room to grow over time. But, she says things at that time with her full chest. She's making songs about how, black men are compared to monkeys. And she's made spicy OF content with her mom and her sister. She's even gone as far as making OF content, fetishizing her pregnancy. It's just things like that where I really question you as a person. And yeah, she says she's grown and she's changed and things like that. But at the same time, I feel like certain things. Like, if you're profiting from being that level of problematic, you're going to continue to do things. And who knows, she probably thinks it as well. Someone can easily project themselves as being a reformed person, but in the background just be the same person, just with less people knowing. So I want to say that she's grown, but she's also co-signed a lot of problematic things and topics that I don't think should be easily forgotten at all. She's been friends of people that have gotten canceled for worse things, and she's been friends with people that have gotten canceled for less. So how she's been able to kind of get out of being held accountable or even canceled for what she's done is like a mystery to me, especially when I find it quite contradictory when Brooke Schofield from the Canceled podcast with Tana Mojo, she got canceled last year for all the old tweets all the old racist tweets that come out. And Trisha, I think, also kind of shamed Brooke for that, but that's just so contradictory when, Trisha's making songs and, I think she did a little bit of blackface at one point and she's pretending to be all these different cultures and races and religions just for views. I mean, I don't know. I won't be showing any images of Trisha's children, but I'll just talk about the controversies and kind of the conspiracy theories around their children that the fans have come up with. It is a coincidence, but it feels too coincidental to me that every time Trisha gives birth, someone like culturally significant dies. So her first child, Barbie Malibu, was around the same time that the Queen of England died. And that was, I mean, I'm here in England, that was a big deal. And then the second child that Trisha had was named Elvis. And I think around that time, the Pope had died as well. And then now, with her newest child being born, uh, Ozzy Osbourne has just passed away. And I think his funeral was yesterday or the day before. So fans have come up with this conspiracy theory that Trisha Paytas' kids are like reborn or reincarnated of the Pope, the Queen, and Ozzy Osbourne. Trisha has said she doesn't like this conspiracy theory. I could see how, like, you just want your kids to be kids and attaching them to such, people of high importance and, this weird reborn, reincarnated, sorry, could make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. Like, just leave my kids out of that. But, she's put her kids in the public, spotlight purposely. So, people are going to take that and come up with who knows what kind of theories and speculate all kinds of things. I find it interesting. Um, it has to be coincidental. There's no way that someone could time something like that. But it happened 3 times in a row. It's interesting. That's all I can say. It's interesting. Now, for the names of her kids, I do find it quite problematic that, this is what she's going to call her kids. Barbie Malibu, in the grand scheme of things, seems really quite normal at this point. But particularly, Trisha's last 2 kids, Elvis and Aquaman. Sorry, I'm gonna roll my eyes every time I say that word, Aquaman, because it just sounds stupid. But as for their names in particular, I do find quite problematic. With Elvis, I know that Elvis is an icon and he has, quite a bit of cultural significance. But when you think about what else Elvis is known for, you know, um, starting a relationship with his wife when she was the age of 16, and I mean, I've heard rumors, I've heard people say that he even died on a toilet from a drug overdose. I don't know how real that is, how true that is, the how he died, but naming your child after someone like that, I just don't see why that would be an attractive name. Trisha has also said in the past that she has had fantasies of Elvis, where I think there's a tweet of her saying that, like, if she could do things to his grave. If it wasn't illegal, she would do it. She's fantasized about Elvis. And so to name your kid after someone that you have sexual attraction to is really, I think, really, really inappropriate. It's not something I would do. Um, and yeah, Elvis is iconic, but that's not what she said in the past. I just don't see why the next course of action would be to name your kid after them. And then the name Aquaman as well. Um, she's also said in the past, particularly about the actor Jason Momoa. She's also put content out there about her fantasies and stuff about Jason Momoa. So him being Aquaman, I think, she in the movie, yeah, she watched it and she loved it because he was in it. And again, it just, why would you name your kid after someone you have sexual attraction to? That's just not something, again, that I would do, that most people would do. And to make your child the name of someone that you objectify, it's just not savory. In a recent podcast of hers, Trisha and her husband Moses uh, explained their reasoning behind the name Aquaman.
Weird. So if you've known me for any amount of time, and it's also Moses because he had this in his water museum, Yeah, okay, here we go. Okay, it is Aquaman!
It is?
Yeah!
Holy
Oh
crap.
my god! Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, this is the... There it is!
Oh my god!
Yay! Baby Aquaman, and then I have my little Aquaman in here too. Where is he? Oh, yeah.
That is so cute!
So it was, yeah, and this was in Moses' water museum when I met him. And he had the little Aquaman everything. And I was like, wait, this is like so perfect.
Oh my god.
Again, they explain it, but it's still, the link just isn't there for me. It really isn't. The logical, well, I guess I can't say logical because she's not really the most logical person. The reasons that she says justifies this choice just aren't really doing it for me. She's even said, like, if they grow up and they want to just be referred to Aqua, they could do that. Why don't you just name your kid that? That's why I really don't think that on paper, legally binding, they sign the birth certificate saying this is going to be Aquaman Paytas. The full name is, I'm going to read it off my laptop, Aquaman Moses Paytas Hackman. I personally think that the kid's real name is just Moses Hackman or Moses Paytas Hackman. Aquaman, I think it's just a public facing thing. I think it's just a persona. And even then, I don't get why you would name your kid after the lamest superhero in existence. I think Mermaid Man from SpongeBob would be a much more justifiable name. I think with the silliness of it all kind of goes back to my last video, which you should watch, about JoJo Siwa, where I made comments about the Eddie Teddy Freddy thing that she said, where celebrities, or at least in these two cases, these celebrities forming an identity for their children before they're even able to make that choice for themselves to become their own person. I think it's a problem. I think it's quite naive, and I think it's really unfair. Uh, Particularly with Trisha, she's naming her kids these ridiculous things. I think has a really lasting impact on their future, and I think it's a shame if this is the case that Trisha's built these identities for her children before they've even become their own person, and the decisions that she makes now impact her kids for the rest of their lives. Like I try to explain earlier, could you imagine your kid walking into an interview or a doctor's meeting and he just says, hey, I'm Aquaman Moses Paytas, like that, just I'm Aquaman Paytas. That's just not setting your kids up for the best life possible. They're going to get made fun of. They're not going to be taken seriously. Who knows, they might even have their own identity crisis from it because it is just such a silly thing that they keep getting ridiculed for, and it's not even their choice. So I'm really hoping that this is just a false name, a public, persona name that she's given. I'll give Trisha the benefit of the doubt that this isn't the kid's legal name. So Trisha Paytas is someone that causes chaos to stay relevant in the news, and to her credit, it's working. No matter what she's done, from the problematic things that she said to the really inappropriate spicy content that she makes on OnlyFans with her family, to identifying as people that she doesn't have the right to be making fun of. For whatever reason, she's been able to navigate through it, and it's worked for her. So good for her, I guess. But at the end of the day, Trisha is just, in my opinion, a huge walking contradiction of herself. If you know more about, Trisha's past, she's all the accumulation of, she's a troll, but she's a victim. She's someone funny, but she's also someone that makes you really uncomfortable. She's someone relatable, but she's just so far out there that how does this person have the platform that she has? Whether or not Church has truly reformed from her past, or if it's just all an act, we'll never really know. She likes to troll. She loves to be memed. She loves the attention. So, what she says and what she thinks versus how she really feels behind the scenes, people are just going to have to continue to try to figure that out and question her along the way. But, for whatever reason, it's working. And there's one thing we know for sure, that Trisha will keep us talking the whole way through. I just hope for the sake of her kids that they have bright, happy lives with their parents. I hope that their names aren't actually Barbie Malibu, Elvis, and Aquaman, and that this is just, Trisha being responsible and protecting her children's identities. So, what do you think about baby Aquaman? Is this, a natural choice do you think Trisha has made? Or do you think, like I feel, like this is just a fake name just to protect him from, the public? If you're a fan, do let me know if you're a fan of Trisha. I'm certainly not. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe this video. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.